Hi everyone, so today we're going to deep dive in on the endless customer. We referenced it in earlier videos, but today we're going to explain what it is, how it works, and what it actually costs to implement. I'm joined today by Claudia, and we're going to go through 7 questions we get asked all the time about the endless customer. So, hi Claudia.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. So question 1 is, so what actually is the endless customer? Can you just explain the concept?
Sure. So the endless customer is really a content marketing, but content sales driven approach. So it's how do we answer all of our questions? And it actually comes from a book that used to be called They Ask You Answer, or was called They Ask You Answer, from Marcus Sheridan. Marcus Sheridan is also the author of Endless Customers. But it's really saying, right, at every stage of the buyer's journey, the reason people don't buy is because they have issues, fears, and concerns or unanswered questions. So how do we use content to answer all of those questions up front so that actually there are no barriers moving forward now? So people can go from, yes, I'm interested, to this is the right technology for me, really with minimal input from your sales team.
So what does the endless customer do for your pipeline?
So really, it's gonna mean that you're not losing customers, is what it's gonna mean. So, we now know that 80% of a buyer's decision happens before they even get in contact with a company. So they're out there researching, whether that's at congresses, whether that's online, whether that's on your website, your social media, they're out there researching. If you don't have the right content out there, and what I mean by that is the content that's gonna answer the questions they have that are stopping them from moving forward, they're potentially gonna leave your sales cycle before you even knew they were there. So when you talk about pipeline, if we're answering the right content online, it means they're going to move through that pipeline and actually they're more likely to get in contact with you. So you might have had, X number of customers who you never even knew were there. They're now going to start coming through your pipeline. So that's what it's going to do for the pipeline.
But you always sort of talk about the endless customer, about how it compresses the sales cycle, but how does it actually compress the sales cycle?
Yeah, so this sort of leads on to the last question that we spoke about your pipeline. So if you're educating people better in your pipeline, so more people are coming through, but actually they're coming through with less questions. So that means instead of, what we always say to customers is, instead of people coming to your sales team and saying, okay, so tell me about your technology, it's more about, right, I really want this, how do I move forwards? So, what we're trying to do is allow self-education significantly more than we ever did before. So when your customers come to your sales team, actually it's a much lighter touch, and your sales team can focus on things like evaluations, without having all those meetings up front to actually explain what your technology does. So what the endless customer will do is not just in the pipeline stage to educate, but also at every stage through your buyer's journey. So what are the repetitive questions you're getting all the time throughout your sales journey, and why are we just repeating ourselves? Like, why don't we use content to address those questions so actually your sales team now can be freed up? And that's how we compress the sales cycle, because we educate people faster.
You mentioned content a few times. What kind of content are we actually talking about?
So this can be any type of content, and it's really dependent on what's right for the audience that you're speaking to. So it could be video, that's highly impactful at the moment. It could be just a PDF, or it could be a templated email. It's really understanding your entire buyer's journey and what type of content needs to go at what stage. So yes, it can be any type of content. It's just really looking at what is going to have the biggest impact. It could be a sales tool as well. So it could be an interactive presentation, an animation, all those different things.
You mentioned a few times about different content at different stages. How do you know what content is going at what stage?
Yeah, okay. So number one, you need to map your sales cycle out. So you need to look at, okay, what are each of my stakeholders that I am going to bump into in this sales cycle? And this is only increasing in Medtech. And map each stakeholder out and say, right, what is that journey that I'm going to go through with them? And what questions am I going to get at every stage? And that dictates the content that you create. It's really simple when you look at it like that. But who are the best people to give you this information? It's your sales team, or if you're launching a product, it could be your product development team. But it's the people who are in contact with those customers all the time. If you're not traditionally in contact with them, then that's where market research can come in and things like that. But it's mapping out your buyer's journey and for each stakeholder and saying, where are the blockages and how do I address them?
Can you give us a real example of how we've actually compressed a sales cycle?
Yeah. So, well, I can give us as an example, but actually it's probably more interesting for people who are listening if I talk about clients. So we've done this numerous occasions, or for many clients now, and probably the best way to talk about it, everything we've spoken about so far is exactly what we do. So we map out the sales journey, we then identify the content. The biggest impact probably you'll see straight away is from a video that addresses the common questions that your customers ask right at the beginning of the sales journey. So we've implemented that across all types of companies now, multinationals, startups, and we've not seen one area where this hasn't been the biggest impact. But I think, so to give you an example of what this does, the feedback we get are things like, it's compressed the impact the time I put into a sales cycle by 50%. So it's improved the sales cycle by 50%. Customers are now coming to me, already knowing what they need. I'm not having to repeat myself over and over again. And interestingly, when we speak to clients, they say it's 60 to 80% of questions are the same in every single initial sales meeting. So we can eliminate those, and that's what we do with these videos. So that's a really good example of how we compress sales cycles down. And it just frees your sales team up so they can go prospect with new clients, or they can go and support cases, things like that. But yeah, the videos are hugely impactful, but it's across the whole sales cycle.
And we've also had loads of salespeople, when we first talk about it, kind of look at us like, not sure.
Totally.
Not sure about this.
Yeah.
And then, we've had them come back a year later being like, it's changed how I sell.
It's not a year later. It's as soon as it's implemented, the impact is immediate. So it's not a year later, it's really, really quick when it happens. I think the biggest challenge with all of these videos, or with all the content that we send out, is it's done in a really different way. So it's not the traditional stuff that everybody's doing. So actually, and that's how you be disruptive, and that's how you make a difference. But there's still resistance in that as well, because, we say to people, this is now how, you need to send out these videos or send out this material around the sales cycle. And they're like, are you sure? Exactly as you said, it's like, yes, and the impact is immediate, and then people it creates such a buzz within a sales team.
It's amazing the impact that it can have. The next question, what is the difference between doing this and doing content marketing?
So this is a lot more targeted, I would say. It is a type of content marketing, absolutely. It's just a more personalized type of content marketing. And when I say personalized, that's probably not the right phrase. It's a lot more focused on truly answering the questions that your customers have. So there's an awful lot of background research that goes into it. And, in a regulated industry, it's challenging. So I think that's why we don't see content marketing that really matches what this is so far, because you have to do it in a regulated space. So yeah, I think the main challenge is you're really answering the questions your customers have, which is, that's the biggest challenge between this and traditional content marketing that we see in medical device.
And the question I think everyone's going to ask is, how long does it take and what does it cost?
So how long does it take for each product to totally align an entire sales cycle? Realistically, it's 1.5 to 2 years. Like, that is how long it takes, because there's a lot of repetition, a lot of cycles that we go through to make sure. And that's what any company, whether you're working with us or anybody else, you have to keep reiterating and going through each of the stakeholders in the sales cycle. But I think you get really quick wins. So that's really important as well. So, when the first piece of content goes out, you'll get an immediate reaction. So I think there's short-term wins and long-term wins, but you'll see an impact immediately.
So for smaller companies who might not have as much time or as much budget, where should they start first?
I think to start off with, you have to map everything out with your sales team, because that's not a high cost activity, because that's going to tell you exactly where all your blockages are in your sales cycle. So that's the first place you start. And then the next place, the initial video that we spoke about before, where you're answering your customers' questions, that is so high impact. And the cost of that could be probably anywhere between 30 or maybe even 25 to 40,000 pounds, depending on what that looks like. So, that has a really high impact. So I think that's where you would start. And then you say, okay, we know all this other content we need to create because the sales team have told us. And then just start staggering it as you go.
So that's the top 7 questions that we get asked by the endless customer all of the time. But what's coming up next week on the channel?
So next week, we're going to be speaking about Dyson. Now, they obviously, everybody knows, sells vacuum cleaners and hair dryers, but they sell them on a very premium and innovative basis. So if Dyson can make their technologies feel so innovative, there's no reason we can't either in medtech. So we're going to break everything down so that you see exactly how they do it, and we're going to apply it back to medtech. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss anything next week.